Excuse all the glitter all over my face if you can see it. It was a partial fail in the makeup department today. I wanted to come on right now and speak really, really candidly and really openly and honestly about something. I know that in the past on this channel, I have mentioned the fact that when it comes to my health, there are certain aspects that I'm willing to talk about and certain aspects that I am not willing to talk about. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that it is a very private part of my life, and it is up to me what I want to share and what I'm not comfortable sharing. And I think I've actually shared quite a bit with you guys so far. But there are some parts of it that I'm not necessarily trying to hide from people, but it's just one of those things that, like, it kind of becomes your normal in a way, or you don't want to think about it, so you just don't really talk about it. But I was thinking about it today, and I think it's important for me to speak out on this issue for anyone who is maybe just getting into, a diagnosis, or they're trying to be diagnosed with something chronic and they're having trouble with it. Sorry, I had to move where my phone was because my arms are really shaky today and I was going to launch it. So sorry about how dark and gloomy everything looks now. But basically, what I want to talk about is that I've been sick since before I was born. You guys know that by now. And it's been progressive. It's gotten worse and worse over time to the point where I've almost died a few times. And the crappiest thing about it is that even though I have stacks and stacks of documentation in my medical records proving that I'm sick, proving I've been through a bunch of surgeries for it to try to correct different things that are wrong with me, proving that my pain is so overwhelming, I can barely function, sometimes for weeks at a time. Even with all that, I still struggle with getting any doctor to take anything going on with me seriously. And this is not an isolated incident. Everyone I know who has a chronic illness or any kind of chronic pain goes through the exact same problems. And it's because of networks. That's exactly it. I know this for a fact because I actually had a doctor who was halfway decent when I still lived in Michigan, and I loved seeing her. She would see me every day if she had to, and she was doing everything that she possibly could to try to help me. But at the end of the day, halfway through, her care with me, she had to quit her practice. And when I asked her why, she said it was because she had been getting harassed by her network that she was a part of. They were telling her she was spending too much time with not just me, but all of her patients who had chronic problems. She was spending too much time. She needed to knock it down to 10 minutes per patient per day. She had to see a certain amount of patients per day. She had to prescribe a certain amount of prescription medications per month. And when she argued that her patients needed more time with her because 10 minutes wasn't long enough, and when she tried to argue that she couldn't just prescribe a bunch of medications to people who might not need them, they basically told her, well, you're doing this stuff or you're losing your job. That's all that there is to it. And she wasn't the only one. I have been to several doctors who are in network who go through that same problem. They want to do their job correctly. They want to help people. They want to do everything in their power to make your life a little bit less painful and a little bit easier, but the network will not let them. Now, I understand why doctors' networks exist. At the end of the day, there's actually a longer story involving that lovely Dr. Death guy and stuff, but that's something that can be your own personal research. But basically, doctors' networks exist because it's a way for the doctors within the network to keep tabs on one another and make sure that if one of them's doing something that's maybe immoral, or if they're not really doing their job to its fullest potential, they can hold each other accountable. That sounds amazing in theory. It sounds like, well, good, less problems will arise then. But it's become corrupt. It's become just a quick way to make a bunch of money from struggling people, and as a result it's the patients who are suffering, because now all they care about is how much money can we pump out of them for prescriptions, how much money can we get from their co-pays and stuff, and then spending only 10 minutes per patient so you can pile in more and more patients. I mean, it's gotten to a point where they're expected to see so many patients that one of the doctors we were seeing here, totally different network, totally different state, nothing to do with the old network I was part of, they had seen Phoenix one day about sleep apnea. A week later, he was talking to her, file in hand, and he had forgotten why she was even there. He was mixing her up with another patient because he's expected to see so many people in a day. We can't fully blame him for that. You might want to say, like, oh, that's wildly unprofessional. He should have known who he was talking to, or like looked at the file for a little bit longer before going in. But like, how is he supposed to? If he needs to see like 30 patients in a day, how is he supposed to pay attention to her file? How is he meant to have the time to remember who she is and what she's there for? He can't. And this is a huge issue. A lot of us that either are trying to get diagnosed with something right now, or whose chronic health problems have progressed and gotten much worse over time, we're all struggling a lot with this, because you basically have two choices. Either continue seeing a doctor that is part of a network, don't get taken seriously, don't necessarily get help, waste a bunch of your money, or you see someone in a private practice, but the problem with that is sometimes they can't accept insurance because they're private, or they have to do everything holistically, and maybe you need more than that. You need an actual prescription drug for what you're going through. There's a lot of pros and cons to either of them, and I hate the fact that networks could have been a good thing, but now they're not. And the reason I was thinking about all of this today is because my stuff has been progressing. I've reached a point where I'm showering like every 3 or 4 days because I can't stand long enough in the shower. Right now, just to film this, I am holding onto something and balancing my body against a shelf to stay upright. When I try to get up from my chair, even with forearm crutches, I either fall or I nearly fall every single time. I have to be in my chair almost 24/7 now. I am sleeping for like 11 to 12 hours and waking up feeling like I didn't sleep at all the entire night, or haven't slept in like 2 or 3 nights. I'm now having these sensations of electrical pulses going through my limbs and my spine. And I've been told by people who have it for years now that they're pretty sure that I have MS, that I tick all the boxes. And the problem then with that is the fact that I saw some neurologists, and literally the second I entered their office, they already had this idea about me because of my age. And I am tired of that too. The fact that they just decide, oh, you're not old enough to have anything chronic, so we're just not going to take you seriously. My grandmother's neurologist even said that she's glad my grandma goes to her and has for so long, because in this neurologist's own words, they just don't care anymore. All they care about is whether or not your case is severe enough that they can make money off of you right now. I think that the biggest problem is the fact that I'm honest with doctors. I tell them, unless I absolutely have to, I'm not interested in taking prescription medications. I don't like taking them. I have a lot of my own personal reasons for why that is. But as soon as you say that, they get pissy with you. They don't want to help you now. What's the point in you being in my office if I can't just dump a bunch of prescription medications onto you right now? So that's where I've been, and I'm sorry about how ranty this video was, but it's important because I'm sure there's a lot of people who might see this video one day who are like, oh, this person is chronically ill, and they like, kind of talk about it on their channel and stuff, but like, don't expect it to be easy. Unfortunately, I wish I could tell you differently, but I can't. Some doctors just do not care anymore. They're just there to make their money and go. I am not here to say what I do or do not have. I do have some diagnoses. I know what I do have currently. I also know that either those problems are getting progressively worse right now, or something else is happening on top of it. And once we figure out more, I may or may not talk about it further on here. Again, that's kind of, you know, my private life, and it just depends on what all of it entails. But yeah, thank you for listening to this ranty video, and I hope all of you are doing at least marginally okay out there given the circumstances. And I will see all of you again soon.